Hello. Um. Uh. I had a pretty good day today because I went. Pardon me. I went to the movies and I went and saw Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and I liked it. It was a pretty good movie. If you are not aware, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is the most recent Marvel movie based off of the comic book Shang-Chi. There have been various iterations of said comic book, but that's what it's based off of. Now, normally for a comic book movie like this, I got a lot of information that I already have to recall to relate back to the movie and how it translates to the film, how it translates to screen from the comic book. But Shang-Chi is one of those characters I only kind of know a little bit. He's not a super popular character, at least not in the comic books, though I have a feeling that's going to change because the movie, I think, is doing okay, or at least as okay as any movie can do in our current situation. But I didn't know him that well, so I actually had to look a few things up to make sure I have proper information. So let's start where it starts. The movie has a few interesting things in it. It's probably it actually doesn't have the most. I was going to say it has the most diverse cast of any Marvel movie yet, but that's actually not true. It has the most non-white cast yet. Actually, let me think about that one. Yeah, actually, it does. Fucking Black Panther had at least two major white characters that I can think of. This movie only had, to my recollection, one. The majority of the cast is Asian because it's a very Asian movie. It's about a Chinese character. The star of the movie is a guy named Simu Liu. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm going to be terrible at this. I apologize in advance. I am really bad at pronouncing Asian names. Really fucking bad. But I'm gonna give it my damnedest try. The old college try. Simu Liu as the title character Shang-Chi. He's living in San Francisco. You get the movie starts. You get a little backstory. Because this is really a story of a family as much as it is about him. And the backstory is about his father. Now, his father is a complicated character. And I'm not even getting into, like, his actual character like he's a complicated man. I mean, like, everything about him is complicated. Because we gotta take some steps back here. Because when it comes to a character going from comic books to the movies, for the most part, they usually translate, almost completely. Like, there's some changes made here or there, but it's usually the same basic character. With Shang-Chi's father, it's a little different. Because for starters, they have him listed in most of the credits as the Mandarin. I don't know why they call him that. He at no point in the movie is referred to as the Mandarin or refers to himself as the Mandarin. In fact, he talks about the character the Mandarin, who has already been brought up in Marvel movies before, and we'll get to that, and he kind of mocks the use of the name. so he never actually refers to himself as the Mandarin, and seems to think that the name is a stupid one. His name in the movie is Wenwu. That's what he refers to as. His name is Wenwu, but he's listed as the Mandarin in all the credits. But in the comic books, Shang-Chi's father is not the Mandarin. Originally in the comic books, it was the Asian character Fu Manchu was his father. Shang-Chi was originally a character that was sort of like, he was adapted from a novel, sort of. Like, Shang-Chi wasn't, but his father and, like, various characters in his comic book were adapted from a novel written by some English author about a character named Fu Manchu, whose name you might have referred to before. He was, an Asian character, an Asian villain. And Shang-Chi was written as a Marvel comic book as his son who betrays Fu Manchu and defies him. But as years went on, Marvel lost their rights to Fu Manchu and couldn't use the name anymore. But they could still use Shang-Chi, they just couldn't use Fu Manchu. So they eventually changed it that Fu Manchu wasn't his real name. His real name was Zhang Zhu. And he was an ancient immortal sorcerer who became a master criminal. And turned his son into a living weapon by making sure he was trained in all forms of martial arts. And in that degree, he's kind of the same in the movie, in that he runs a criminal organization, made sure his son was trained in all forms of martial arts, and he is immortal, but he's not a sorcerer. See, the whole thing about the Legend of the Ten Rings, that's why he calls his organization the Ten Rings, which he didn't call it in the comic books, but he calls his organization the Ten Rings because he wields 10 rings, but not finger rings. It's these weird metal rings that go up his forearms and that he can, like, use as, like, projectiles, and apparently they give him incredible strength. He can do these weird attacks with them, and they also basically make him immortal when he wears them. This is Wenwu I'm talking about. So he'd been alive for 1,000 years before, like, Shang-Chi and his sister were born. Oh, fuck me, man. So basically, Wenwu is an amalgamation of the Fu Manchu Zhang Zhu character with some slight hints of the Mandarin, who is a character in the Marvel comics. He's a Iron Man villain who wielded the power of 10 rings, but they weren't forearm rings. They were finger rings that each had their own that gave him their own unique ability. So he basically had 10 abilities with each ring of power he wore. Now, originally they thought they were magic rings, but it later became that they were rings were actually alien technology, and they each had, like, a personality and as well as their own ability. It was weird. The Mandarin is basically dead in the comic books, though, I think. I don't know. Motherfuckers die and come back so many times. So yeah, this version of Shang-Chi's father is basically an amalgamation of all those characters, and he's given the name Wenwu. So the early parts of the story about him, spending thousands of years as a conqueror with these 10 power rings, and moving into modern times as he built his organization's power and influence. And then he tries to go to this mystical land named called Tao Lo, that they just kind of list as some mystical place that's hard to reach. That's filled with mythological creatures and great power. In Marvel Comics, Tao Lo is listed as basically like the Chinese version of like Asgard. It's like the home of the Chinese gods. It's not quite that in the movie, but that's what it's referred to in the comic books. So, slight change there for whatever that's worth. So Wenwu tries to get into Tao Lo, meets this woman there. I think her name is Jiang Li. Yeah, Jiang Li. And they fight, but she's more powerful than him, and she defeats him. And she's even able to manipulate his rings against him and everything. And they kind of fall in love. And then you just get the story of they had kids, and then something goes wrong. And then we just find Shang-Chi living in California, or San Francisco to be more specific, and he's working as a valet with his best friend named Katie, who's played by Awkwafina. And everything seems cool until one day he's attacked on a bus by a group of just obvious assassins who are trying to steal his pendant he got from his mother. And one of the assassins is a guy named Razor Fist, who's a character from the comic books, one of Shang-Chi's enemies. Now, in the comic books, he's got both his hands are missing, and he's just got blades for hands. In the movie, I guess they wanted to make it slightly more practical and make it so that he is only missing one hand and has only one blade for a hand. And that character's played by Florian Munteanu. You know what? That's fairness, because I'm not going to pronounce any of these Asian names right, and he's the one white guy in the movie, and I'm not pronouncing his name right. At least I got Awkwafina right. God bless her for choosing a simple name. Well, Shang-Chi, who at the time is going by the name Sean, reveals that he actually knows how to fight very well. He beats the crap out of all these assassins, and that leads to a huge bus crash and everything. And then he's forced to tell Katie the truth about who he is and where he comes from. And he feels he's got to go find his sister, who's living in Macau. His sister, he got a postcard from her, or at least he believed he got a postcard from her, to track her somewhere in Macau. And when he gets there, he finds that it's this like underground fighting place that she's in. And this movie holds a distinction as not only being an Asian-centered movie, but it also holds a distinction of having maybe the most cameos of any Marvel movie I've ever seen. It's just cameos of characters that have appeared in various other Marvel movies. And this is where we see the first two. Because one of the fights they see there is Wong from Doctor Strange movies, his partner there, the sorcerer, the Asian sorcerer who is Doctor Strange's partner, or who's played by Benedict Wong, oddly enough, and who's fighting the Abomination, which is a character we haven't seen in a long time, not since the Incredible Hulk movie, where he was played by Tim Roth. I don't think he's played by Tim Roth here because we don't hear him talk, so I think they just CGI'd him, and it really wasn't important. He's only in the movie for a little bit, but he does show up. So we get to see them have a little fight, and that's their cameo there. Though Wong does show up later, too. Then Shang-Chi is forced to fight. And he doesn't know who he's fighting because he's looking for his sister. And he finds out, surprise, surprise, he's fighting his sister. His sister, Xialing, who's played by Meng Zhang. Meng, Zhang. So that's Meng Zhang. I think that's how it's pronounced. Once again, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Now, she's another confusing character, because much like the father, who was an amalgamation of a bunch of different characters, she is too. Because in the comic books, Shang-Chi actually has a shit ton of siblings, most of them female, although none of them are named Xialing. So I don't know exactly who this character is supposed to be based off of. She could be based off a little bit of them, based off of all of them. I don't know. Let's see. How many sisters does he have? I think he has 4. And the first one is from the original run of his comic books, where she was called Fa Lo Sui. Fahlosuee. I think that's how you pronounce it. But much like their father, who was originally called Fu Manchu, she, I guess, was a character from the initial book, so they lost the rights to her. So they eventually had to change her name later on to... What the fuck did they change her name to? I got it here somewhere. We're going to get this. We're going to get this, folks. Don't you worry. Oh, they changed her name to Zhang Bao Yu. Pretty much, I think I'm just saying that one right. Zhang Bao Yu. And and yeah, then recently they've introduced even more sisters. Now that was a half sister. That was an older half sister, but now they've revealed they've expanded on in recent comic books. Actually, the most current run of his comic book, they've expanded more on his family, introducing like half siblings and even a full sibling. He has a full-blooded sister named Shi Hua, and 2 half sisters one named Esme. Go figure. And Zhang Zilan. So, Xialing could be any one of them, approximation of any one of them. She seems to bear the most resemblance to Esme, but I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. But whatever, they fight, and she kind of kicks his ass because it seems like she has some sort of resentment to him. Going back more into his backstory a little bit, they keep going back and forth between this. After his mother died, his father, who had given up his criminal ways initially, goes back to his criminal ways, and he insists that his son learn how to fight, and that's where he spends years becoming a human weapon under the tutelage of one of his father's main henchmen, a guy called the Death Dealer, who's played by a martial arts actor named Andy Lee. Or Andy Lay. It's only L-E, so I don't know if it's Lee or Lay. Whatever. He learns how to fight, he becomes a master fighter, and then he's sent to go kill for his father. Now, he initially says that he wasn't able to kill the guy he was sent to kill, But we learn later that that's bullshit. He actually did go and kill the guy who said to kill him. That's why he ended up leaving his father, because he's like, my father sent me to go kill somebody. He's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. So he walked away. So he basically left home when he was 14 and never looked back. But he also abandoned his younger sister, Xialing, in the process, and she's still angry about that. So when they fight, he doesn't want to fight her, but she very much wants to fight him. And she beats the crap out of him and, doesn't really show any forgiveness to him. They're talking and afterwards, and he warns her that their father is coming for her because she also has a pendant like his. And then he says, you sent me that postcard, and she says, I never sent you a postcard. And that's when they realize it was a trap. Their father's people attack, including Razor Fist, and we even find out later Death Dealer. And that's when their father also shows up. And he takes them back home to their original base. Their father seems to be very dismissive of his daughter. We even see in the past she wasn't allowed to train with her brother, so she had to train in secret, and that's how she learned how to fight. And she basically tells Katie that when they get to their home, that she, just kept her head down and didn't make any noise, and her father basically ignored her because he became very dismissive of her after their mother died. No. Their fathers brought them back to show them why he needed the pendants. Apparently the pendants revealed some map that showed a way to get into Tal Lo. See, the thing is, Tal Lo, to get to it, you have to go through this forest that has an ever-changing maze in it, and the forest will kill you if you don't follow the maze correctly. But the father found out that this map shows that there's actually a hidden path that goes straight through the forest maze. You can avoid the maze completely, but it only opens once a year on a specific day at a specific time. So now he knows the day and the time, and he can get through. But his children don't. Now the reason he wants to go back to Tal Lo is because he believes that his wife is there. That she's not dead, that she's there, and she's being imprisoned by her own people. And he says he's willing to destroy the village to get her back if they won't let him in. His kids try to stop him, so he has them all locked up, along with Katie, who was brought there with them. And while they're locked up, they find down in the prison a man named Trevor Slattery, played by Ben Kingsley. Now, if you watched Iron Man 3, you might recognize this character, because in Iron Man 3, Ben Kingsley played the Mandarin. Now, you might be confused, like, oh, I thought the Mandarin was this Wen Wu guy who mocked the name the Mandarin. He mentioned how somebody copied the name of the 10 rings to pretend to be a terrorist and made up this character called the Mandarin. That was this Trevor Slattery guy, and he explains how he thought he was taking on a role, and he was actually tricked into working for a group of terrorists, and he was a drug addict and everything. And he went to prison, and then he was broken out of prison by Wen Wu's people because he wanted revenge for this guy, taking his organization's name and essentially pretending to be him. Now, this is actually depicted years ago in a short film that most people never saw. But I saw it, so I knew about this. But Slattery revealed that, he started quoting, I think it was Macbeth or something. Or maybe it was Hamlet, or something like that. So we're quoting from some play, and so Wen Wu kind of liked him and just kept him around as sort of like a fucking court jester, if you will. But now he's gone back to going by his name, Trevor Slattery. I think I mentioned that he's played by Ben Kingsley. If I didn't, he's played by Ben Kingsley. He's basically introduced as for two ways. First, he's basically comedic relief. He's just kind of an idiot. And Ben Kingsley's actually very good at the role of playing this hapless moron. He's actually very funny. I have to give him credit. But he also introduces this other thing. He introduces this weird creature that he refers to as Morris. And this weird creature is apparently also from Tao Lo and can direct them to the village. He reveals that they don't need this special path that their father is waiting for, that he can direct them through the maze directly. So they break out of prison with Trevor and his weird creature Morris, and then they get to the village, or they get through the maze and they get into the village, where they're not exactly welcomed at first, but then they are welcomed by a woman played by Michelle Yeoh, I think. And it turns out her name is Jiang Nan. She's their mother's sister. So she's their aunt. And she welcomes them, and she explains some things. It turns out that Tao Lo is a place connected by many places in the universe, which actually matches from the Marvel Comics, because it was like one of the 36 cities of heaven or something like that in the Marvel Comics. I don't know. But basically, she reveals in their history that they had an encounter with this creature called the Dweller in the Darkness. Now, that is a real creature from the Marvel Comics. It's kind of a Cthulhu-esque entity. It's considered one of the Fear Lords. It feeds on people's fear. Hence why it's one of the Fear Lords. They change it slightly for the movie. They make it this weird dragon creature that consumes souls. I did not have a picture of it because I couldn't find a picture of it. Her people tried to stop it centuries ago, but were losing until they were joined by a creature called the Great Protector. The Great Protector is basically just a gigantic dragon. Now, when they mentioned that these creatures were like dragons, I thought for sure one of them was going to be Fing Fang Foom, who is a giant dragon who usually has some connections to the Mandarin. They did not do this in that. They did not do that in this movie, which I guess makes sense, but whatever. The Great Protector just looks like a typical Chinese dragon. You know, like a weird snake-like creature that just flies through the air even if it doesn't have wings. The Great Protector also gifted this village with the gift of dragon scale, which they turn into weapons and armor. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Wenwu, who's still waiting to get into the village, he's going slowly crazy because he keeps hearing the voice of his wife calling for him to come get her. They reveal in the village that the Dweller in the Darkness is locked up in a prison just outside the village in this massive cave. He and his followers, who are these weird creatures called soul stealers or soul eaters or something like that, and she says that every now and then the Dweller in the Darkness will find someone to corrupt to come and try to open its cage and let it out, but they always manage to stop them. Now, they even mentioned, she even asked the question, has he been wearing the rings? And they said, yeah, every day since our mother died, and she makes it seem like that's bad. And it's but they never make any mention of that again. Are the rings something bad? What are they exactly? That'll come up later, too. Now everybody there's these little training montages in the village, and Shang-Chi fights with does a little practice session with his aunt, and she teaches him about, his power and everything like that. And Then eventually Wenwu and the Ten Rings show up, and of course they try to talk him out of what he's doing. He doesn't listen. A major fight breaks out. Shang-Chi almost gets killed. But he falls in the water and finds a great protector still there. His father starts trying to break through the fucking dragon scale. The whole prison, door in the cave that keeps the Dweller in the Darkness and his creatures imprisoned is made out of dragon scale, but Wenwu keeps punching it with his rings until it breaks, and more Soul Stealers get out. He and Shang-Chi fight again. This time Shang-Chi does a better job and manages to take the rings from his father. But it's a short-lived victory because the Dweller in the Darkness eventually breaks out. At this point, the Ten Rings people and the people of the village have already started to fight, working together, because they realize they're all going to be killed if they work apart. The Dweller in the Darkness breaks out, and Wenwu eventually does get killed by it, realizing he made a terrible fucking mistake. Then, it's amazing how much of this end fight is just a bunch of, dragon creatures just flying around. It's funny. I've complained for a while about how the Marvel movies, they kind of make their characters, they tame down the characters too much, castrate them a little power-wise, and make their stories a bit more palatable, make it make more sense, a little less crazy than necessary. I definitely feel like they did that with Thanos and everything. But it feels like in this case with Shang-Chi, they actually made his story more crazy with all the shit about dragons and the ancient mystic village and everything like that. But I mean, it's already kind of crazy. He's the son of an immortal sorcerer who takes an elixir to keep himself immortal, but but yeah, that whole thing about the dragons fighting at the end, and Shang-Chi manages to use the rings against the Dweller in the Darkness and destroys it completely this time. So they beat the Dweller in the Darkness, and, even Katie fights a little bit. She actually lands a pretty good fight on the fucking Dweller in the Darkness or a pretty good hit on the Dweller in the Darkness at a key moment. What was I saying? Seriously, what the fuck was I saying? Oh yeah, they made this movie a lot less tame than you would think, which is an easy movie to tame completely, but they made it significantly less tame. Their father dies at the hands of the Dweller in the Darkness. I think I mentioned that. Yeah, because he has the rings. He uses the rings to kill the Dweller in the Darkness, and it's all over then. Then they show him in a bar. He and Katie are talking to an old friend and her boyfriend about what they did and everything, and they don't believe them. And then all of a sudden Wong shows up and saying that he needs to talk to Shang-Chi. And this is where we get even more cameos. Remember, we already have 3. We have Wong, Abomination, and Ben Kingsley's Trevor Slattery / Mandarin. We get Wong again, who invites Shang and Katie to come through a portal with him, and then in the mid-credit scene, we see where that scene leads. Wong is trying to figure out what exactly the Ten Rings are, because he doesn't know. They're not mystical in nature, according to him. He's got Bruce Banner there, played by Mark Ruffalo, who's also trying to help him figure out. He says the rings aren't vibranium. He asks if they're alien technology to Captain Marvel, who's played by Brie Larson, and she says none that she's familiar with. So they determine that the rings are, that even though Wenwu was only using the rings for 1,000 years, they determine they're actually much older than that. So they have no idea where they came from. I'm curious if it would be somehow related to the Eternals. Maybe they had something to do with that. I don't know. But yeah. And then there's an after credit scene where you see Xialing is Xialing is taking over her father's criminal empire. She's putting the Ten Rings back together under her control. I guess it's some sort of, girl boss, women empowerment movement, but it's, as a criminal. So, but I guess it's a chick. It's okay. I don't know what the whole point is, but it looking beyond that, it creates more drama because Shang-Chi's sister, who he loves and who he feels a sense of guilt towards because he left her behind, she's now becoming someone who will potentially become an enemy to him. So I guess, good luck with that. Bruce Banner actually says to Shang-Chi's like, welcome to the circus. Basically saying, welcome to your life becoming very, very weird. Yeah, I basically think I just covered the whole movie as quickly as I could, which actually probably wasn't that quick. No, it wasn't. This was a good movie. I was surprised by how much I liked this movie. The comic book has always been kind of whatever. Like I said, I don't know a lot about it. It kind of becomes hard to follow because they restart it so much. He's never been a super popular character. Just basically a holdover from the kung fu craze of the 70s and shit. But whatever. Speaking of kung fu, like the martial arts in the movie was actually pretty good. It seemed like everybody really knew what they were doing, or at least they cut to their stunt doubles who fucking did it. But it was all the fight scenes were great. The action scenes were really cool. I mean, Marvel's CGI is always top fucking notch. It was good shit, man. It looked good. It was funny. It was interesting. And the action was awesome, which is what you're looking for in a, fucking action type movie like that. So, yeah. In a very shocking development, to me at least, I'm giving Shang-Chi 2 thumbs up. 5 stars. I don't have a specific rating, so I'll just take other people's. What do I care? Alright, nobody's using the thumbs up right now, so 2 thumbs up. Fuck them. Fuck them. Sisker and Ebert are dead, motherfuckers. But yeah, I like this better than fucking Black Widow, which was kind of boring, to be honest. This movie was way better, way more interesting, and set up for way better developments. So, you know, I don't even remember half the things I say in these. I hope I explained everything correctly. I have to wait till I rewatch it tomorrow morning because I'm fucking tired right now. Ugh. Thank God it's fucking Sunday. Day to just not give a fuck. It's funny that it was 9/11 today. Never forget. Believe me, I remember. I don't know what that was about. I should cut that out. Um, But yeah, it was a great movie. Set up had great potential for setup for more movies. You know. Oh yeah, when they were trying to figure out in that mid credit scene where the what the rings were, where they came from, they revealed that Shang-Chi came to their attention when he started using the rings, because apparently when he started using them, he did something to them that set off a weird beacon. That so now that we know the rings are sending a signal somewhere, but they're not sure where or to what, which further leads me to believe this has something. They have something to do with the Eternals. I just feel like that's the case, but I guess we'll see. Um, like I said, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Great movie. 2 thumbs up. Great, you know, superhero fare. Great blockbuster movie. Great action movie. Great martial arts movie. Whatever you want to consider it. It has all that going for it. And it's a good, fun movie. So I would definitely recommend watching it if you haven't watched it yet. Don't be swayed from my shitty description. It's way better than even I'm making it sound. Okay, I think that just about does it. I gotta go to bed. Have a good night, folks. See you at the next one.